The automatic doors whispered open, releasing a cool burst of air that carried the faint scent of coffee and printer ink. Derek Cole stepped inside, adjusting his cap lower over his brow. It was early. Too early for a CEO to be anywhere but in a conference room or behind a sleek desk, but that was the point. He wasn't here as the CEO of Cole Financial. Today, he was just another customer, one of thousands whose deposits and withdrawals kept his empire running. The lobby buzzed with a quiet sort of rhythm. A line of customers stood beneath softly humming lights, the occasional chime of a teller's drawer or a phone's notification breaking the monotony. Derek paused for a second, taking it all in. The marble floors gleamed, the Cole Financial logo polished to perfection behind the counter. His name, his legacy, but to everyone here, he was invisible. He had designed this place to feel warm, accessible, a bank that didn't intimidate. Yet something about the tight smiles and stiff postures of the employees struck him differently now that he was standing on the other side of the counter. He joined the line, sliding his hands into the pocket of his hoodie. A few glances turned his way, some curious, others dismissive. The man in the tailored suit 2 spots ahead gave him a wary look, then quickly turned away. When his turn came, Derek stepped forward to the teller's window. She was young, maybe in her late 20s, with neatly pressed clothes and a professional calm about her. Her name tag read Samantha. She greeted him with a polite, rehearsed smile. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" Derek returned the smile, keeping his tone friendly. "I'd like to withdraw $10,000, please." Her fingers paused midair over the keyboard. "10,000, she repeated, glancing at him again. Her gaze drifted from the scuffed sneakers to the faded hoodie, lingering for just a second too long. "Do you have your ID with you, sir?" "Of course." He slid his driver's license across the counter. She picked it up, studying it with professional detachment, then looked at the computer screen, then back at him. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly. "Mr. Cole," she said carefully. "This is quite a large amount. Do you mind if I ask the purpose of the withdrawal?" Derek tilted his head slightly. "Do I need a reason to take out my own money?" Her composure wavered just a fraction. "It's just a security measure, sir. We have to be careful with high-value transactions." "I understand," he said, keeping his tone even, though he could feel the shift in the air. The line behind him had grown quiet. A man coughed impatiently. Somewhere, a printer clicked and started up again. Samantha typed something into the system, her eyes flicking between the screen and Derek. After a moment, she stood and disappeared into the back office. Derek waited, tapping his finger lightly against the counter. He could see her silhouette through the frosted glass, gesturing to another employee, a man in a blazer who leaned over her shoulder, frowned, and then looked up toward the lobby. Derek caught his gaze for a moment before the man vanished deeper inside. He sighed softly. So much for anonymity. A few minutes later, Samantha returned, her expression more guarded now. "I'm sorry for the delay, Mr. Cole," she said, her voice polite but distant. "But I'll need additional verification before I can process your withdrawal." "Additional verification," Derek repeated. "What kind of verification?" She hesitated. "Do you have proof of account ownership? Like a recent statement, or perhaps a card linked to this account?" Derek blinked slowly. "You mean besides the government-issued ID with my name on it?" "The same name that's on the account." Her cheeks colored slightly, but she didn't back down. "I'm sorry, sir, it's just, our system flagged the transaction as irregular." He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. "Irregular because of the amount, or because of me?" The question hung in the air like static. Samantha opened her mouth, then closed it again. She didn't answer. Behind him, a security guard shifted his stance. Another had begun to walk toward the counter, not aggressively, but alert. Derek could feel the temperature in the room drop, that subtle collective judgment, the unspoken assumption that something about him didn't fit. He exhaled quietly and nodded, forcing a thin smile. "All right, let's do this your way." Samantha seemed relieved, mistaking his calm for compliance. "Thank you, sir. It won't take long." But Derek wasn't just any customer. He watched everything. The hesitation in her movements, the lack of eye contact, the slight tightening of her voice. This was exactly why he had come undercover in the first place. He wanted to see how his institution treated people when they didn't look like power, when they didn't sound like wealth. As she disappeared into the back again, Derek glanced around the lobby, his reflection faint in the glass of the Cole Financial logo. He smiled without humor. For all the mission statements about equality and dignity, it seemed the culture beneath the polish hadn't changed as much as he'd hoped. Today, he thought, someone was going to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. The seconds dragged, stretching into minutes that thickened the air around Derek. The low murmur of the lobby returned, though now it carried a different tone, sharper, curious. He could feel eyes on him. The cautious glances of tellers who whispered to one another, the sideward looks of customers trying not to stare. The tension wasn't loud, but it was heavy, humming beneath every polite smile and every clack of a keyboard. Derek leaned casually against the counter, masking his irritation. He had built this bank from the ground up with a promise. Every client matters, every voice counts. He'd written those words himself. They hung on plaques in every branch, probably even behind the very counter where Samantha was now whispering to the manager. Yet, standing there in jeans and a hoodie, he could feel how hollow those promises sounded. The glass door to the manager's office swung open, and a man in a crisp navy suit stepped out. His posture screamed authority, but his face carried the stiffness of someone who'd rather not be dealing with trouble before lunch. The name tag read Craig Holloway, branch manager. Craig approached with the careful steps of a man approaching something volatile. "Mr. Cole," he began, offering a tight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I understand you're trying to make a withdrawal." "That's right," Derek replied evenly. $10,000 from my account." Craig clasped his hands in front of him. "I see. Well, there seems to be some irregular activity flagged on this account. For your own security, we'd need to verify a few details before proceeding." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Irregular activity? I can assure you, there's nothing irregular about me accessing my own money. I'm sure you understand," Craig continued smoothly, "that these measures are in place to prevent fraud. You'd be surprised how often people attempt to steal from themselves." Derek interrupted quietly. Craig blinked, thrown off rhythm. "Excuse me, you're assuming I'm not who I say I am," Derek said, voice calm but laced with steel. "I gave you my ID. It matches the account. What exactly is making you so nervous, the hoodie or the skin tone?" Craig's jaw tightened. "Sir, please don't misunderstand. We treat all our customers with equal respect." "Do you?" Derek asked, his gaze steady. "Because from where I'm standing, I'm being treated like a suspect." The silence that followed was cutting. The customers had stopped pretending not to listen. Even Samantha looked uneasy now, shifting in place as if she wanted to speak but didn't dare. Craig cleared his throat and motioned to the security guard, who had drifted closer. "There's no need to cause a scene," Craig said lightly, though his eyes darted toward the guard. "If you'll come with me to my office, we can resolve this quietly." Derek's lips twitched into a humorless smile. "Quietly, right." He pushed off the counter, following Craig through the glass door into the office. The guard trailed a few steps behind, the picture of professionalism, or suspicion, depending on how you saw it. Inside, the office was immaculate. Awards lined the walls, plaques that read things like Customer First Excellence and Top Performing Branch. Derek almost laughed. Craig gestured toward a chair. Derek sat, arms folded loosely, watching as the manager typed something into his computer. "So," Craig said after a moment, "it appears the system can't confirm your ownership of this account. Possibly a back-end issue. If you can provide additional identification, a business card, maybe, we can speed this up." Derek stared at him for a long moment. Then, with deliberate calm, he asked, "Do you know who owns Cole Financial?" Craig looked up, puzzled. "Of course. The board lists Derek Cole as CEO. Why? Because you're looking at him." The words hung between them like a thunderclap. Craig froze, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then he let out a short, disbelieving laugh. That's a good one, sir. Really. But if you could just..." Derek reached into his pocket and placed a sleek black card on the desk. It bore the embossed letters Cole Financial Group, Executive Access, with his full name and signature beneath it. Craig's face paled. He picked it up with trembling fingers, examining the metal finish, the engraved serial code that only top-level executives received. You might want to call headquarters, Derek said quietly. Ask them who signs your paychecks. Craig's throat bobbed. He fumbled for the phone, dialing with clumsy fingers. The call was short, but Derek could hear the tone shift instantly, the stammered apology, the rising panic. When Craig finally hung up, he looked as though he'd swallowed a stone. Mr. Cole, he began, his voice barely steady. I didn't realize. No, Derek interrupted. You didn't. That's the problem. Outside the glass wall, the guards were still lingering, the customers still whispering. Derek stood, taking his card back. You know, he said, his tone measured, this was supposed to be an undercover visit. I wanted to see how customers were treated, the ones who don't wear suits, who don't look like they belong here. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. And now I know exactly how they're treated. Craig's mouth opened, but no words came. Derek turned and walked out, past the tellers, past the curious eyes. Samantha looked stricken. She half rose as he passed. He gave her a small nod, not of anger, but disappointment. By the time he reached the doors, the lobby had fallen into complete silence. The CEO they'd doubted, judged, and quietly dismissed walked out into the sunlight, pulling his hoodie tighter. Inside, the bank he'd built was about to learn the difference between policy and prejudice. The sunlight outside felt sharper, colder somehow, as Derek stepped through the glass doors of his own bank. For a few seconds, he stood on the sidewalk, just breathing. The traffic hummed, horns blared, people moved past him without a second glance, a city that didn't care who he was. Inside, though, behind those polished doors and marble floors, a storm was brewing. He could already imagine the calls being made, the frantic explanations, the apologies being rehearsed. He started walking down the block, his footsteps steady, the frustration still burning in his chest. He'd planned to come undercover for weeks, to get an unfiltered look at how his employees treated everyday customers. He had told no one, not even his assistant, not the PR team, not even the board. The disguise wasn't elaborate, just the simplest version of himself. A man in jeans, hoodie, and sneakers, stripped of the armor of title and wealth. He hadn't expected the performance he'd just witnessed, the suspicion, the cold professionalism that barely hid prejudice, the assumption that a man like him couldn't possibly hold $1 million account. His phone buzzed. The screen flashed a name. Cynthia Reyes, Regional Director. He swiped to answer. Cynthia, he said evenly. Her voice came out fast, breathless. Mr. Cole. I just got a call from the downtown branch. They said you were there. There seems to be an incident. There was, he said simply. And you might want to get down here before that incident turns into a lesson your staff will never forget. She didn't even hesitate. I'm on my way. By the time Derek circled back, 20 minutes later, a sleek black sedan was parked in front of the bank. Cynthia stood outside, heels clicking anxiously against the pavement, her phone pressed to her ear. When she saw him, she froze, then quickly hung up. Sir, I am so sorry, she began immediately. Craig just called me. He didn't know it was you, he thought. He thought I didn't belong, Derek said quietly, finishing her sentence. Her shoulders slumped. Yes, sir. They walked back inside together. The moment he crossed the threshold, the atmosphere changed. Conversation stopped. Tellers straightened. Craig appeared from his office, pale and sweating, his tie slightly crooked. Samantha hovered behind him, eyes wide, wringing her hands. Mr. Cole, Craig started, voice shaking, please accept my sincerest apologies. This was a misunderstanding, a terrible one. We thought. I know what you thought, Derek said, his tone calm but cutting. He stepped closer, close enough that Craig had to tilt his head up to meet his eyes. You thought a black man in a hoodie couldn't have $10,000 in his account. You thought my ID was suspicious. You thought calling security was safer than calling for understanding. The words landed with the weight of truth. No one spoke. Samantha's eyes filled with tears. Sir, she said softly, I didn't mean. I believe you, Derek said, turning to her. I don't think you meant to offend me. But meaning doesn't erase impact. He took a deep breath and looked around the lobby, at the faces that couldn't meet his gaze. This bank bears my name. Every one of you works under the promise that we treat people with dignity, regardless of race, clothes, accent, or background. Yet I just stood here, in my own building, and felt the kind of judgment we're supposed to protect people from. Craig swallowed hard. It won't happen again, sir. I assure you. Oh, I know it won't, Derek said, his voice low. Because tomorrow morning, there's going to be a new training program, mandatory, for every employee, every branch. We're going to start fixing this culture from the inside out. He glanced at Cynthia, who nodded quickly, already taking notes. Yes, sir, I'll organize it immediately. Derek looked back at Craig. And as for you, I don't fire people for mistakes. I fire people for patterns. Consider this your one chance to prove you can learn. Craig's relief came out as a shaky exhale. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Derek didn't respond. He walked toward the glass wall at the front of the lobby, stopping to look at the large golden letters of the company's name reflected faintly in the morning light. Cole Financial. It looked perfect from a distance, but up close, even gold could hide cracks. He turned back to the staff, his voice softer now. I didn't come here today to embarrass anyone. I came here to see the truth, and I did. But let's be clear. What happened here isn't just about me. It's about every client who's ever been looked at like they didn't belong. Every customer who walked out feeling smaller than when they came in. The silence was absolute. Even the soft hum of computers seemed to fade. Then Derek smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I'll be back next month, he said. Maybe in a suit, maybe not. Let's see if the experience feels different next time. As he turned to leave, Samantha's quiet voice followed him. Mr. Cole, thank you for not giving up on us. He paused at the door, looking over his shoulder. I'm not giving up, he said. But I am watching. And with that, Derek Cole, the man who built a bank meant to welcome everyone, walked out into the bright city sunlight, his reflection vanishing from the glass as the automatic doors closed behind him. Inside, the employees stared at the space he'd left, each of them realizing, for the first time, that the face of fairness wasn't just a slogan on the wall, it was the man they'd nearly turned away.